Hello, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of Unfollowing Mum. How are we all? I hope you're doing really well. I hope you're having a good week. This week's episode is going to be all about Mother's Day. Here in the UK, Mother's Day is on Sunday the 10th of March this year, which means at the time that this goes out, Mother's Day will be this weekend. And it comes with a lot of very complicated feelings for a lot of people. For myself, I'm a mum of three, so a lot of my focus feels like it goes on being mum for the day, celebrating me as their mum. And I love that they want to do that and they want to spend time with me, and just really in some ways it feels like just another day. I don't know if people will relate to that, but in other ways it feels really nice that my husband will get up and bring me a coffee in bed, or the kids will pile in depending on where football is on that weekend, because we have a little boy who plays football and that top trumps any kind of mum celebration. They go and do their thing, and I love to hear about that. And then maybe in the afternoon there'll be, let's get a takeaway instead. It's just not really a massive thing for us. Now, when I think back to Mother's Day when my mum lived with us, that was a lot more difficult because nothing I did was good enough. Nothing I said was good enough. I remember one year, I can't remember I think it was for Mother's Day, I'd bought her a cheese subscription, or it might have been her birthday, but it's an example of how she reacted to gifts and any kind of show of affection or trying to do something special for her. And it was just so blasé. She was a big cheese lover. Well, she is a big cheese lover, I should say. And I bought this cheese subscription, and it was all really luxury cheeses. It cost a fortune, and I paid for 6 months worth, thinking, wow, that'll be a really nice treat for her. She's going to love that so much. And all she did every month when it came through the door was bring me the biscuits and say, these are awful, I don't like these, I wouldn't eat them. Or bring me the cheese and say, this one's not what I would eat, so I thought you could have it. And it was just a continual thing. And I can't remember whether or not it was Mother's Day that was what I did for her. But even if it wasn't, that's how she would have reacted, no matter what the gift. And if anything came through for work for me, working as a content creator, where it would be like, oh, let's do something nice as Mother's Day, she would do her utmost to make it as difficult and painful and unpleasant as possible, even though I was trying to do something nice for her. And there would be this kind of awkward, thank you, if I gave her a gift. And by contrast, that was the other thing as well, it would have to be about her. And if there wasn't enough attention put on her, that would be a problem. But if the attention wasn't to her liking, that would be a problem. And by contrast, my husband's mum is very much like, well, I'd appreciate a card, but you've got your wife, and it's just not really, it's not that big of a deal that I need all the attention to be on me immediately. You must come and see me and do all things. And generally speaking, we often try and go and see her. But if we don't get time because there's been football or there's been something else on, then it's not a big problem. And it's not something that we would be berated for or made to feel like we'd failed for, or that he'd been made to feel awful about. If he didn't remember to send her a message, I'm pretty confident his dad would be like, dude, come on. You are her son. Please at least send her a message or send her a card, because they have a standing relationship. But there would never be any kind of expectation to drop everything and make a big fuss and focus exclusively on her, and then it's still not good enough, the way that it was with my mum. So for me, when I think about it now, yes, I focus on it as a mum, and I really love that side of it, and I love having the extra cuddles with the kids. And they come to me, and they've, last year I'd suggested that they all go to the charity shop and buy one book each, because I love to read. And I was like, get me a completely random book each. And they came back with such a mixture, but it encouraged me to get outside of my reading comfort zone, which is what I wanted. And that's what I'd specifically asked to do. And they said they'd had such a giggle going in and picking a random book by the cover. And they actually came out with some kind of good books, to be fair. And it was something a bit different, and it didn't cost loads of money. And then they came upstairs, they'd bought me coffee in bed, and yeah, just made a little bit of a fuss, which I thought was absolutely lovely. And then the day continued on as normal, and I loved that. And I was just really happy to be able to say I was their mum, and that's what that meant for me. Now there is almost an element of, in fact, actually I'm lying, that was last year, but last year we were flying out of the country, and I'd done that on purpose. I'm thinking of the year before when they'd bought breakfast in bed and that kind of thing. Last year we were flying out of the country to go skiing, and yes, I did that on purpose because I was really finding it difficult that there was all of this stuff around about Mother's Day. And yeah, I remember now, there was all this stuff around about Mother's Day, and I just thought, oh my days, like, my mum is my best friend. Fuck off. Like, it's just not the reality for so many people. And being bombarded by PR emails saying, hi Harriet, would you like to come and do this with your mum? I'm like, guys, read the room, please. I could ask her, but she'll probably say no. And I just thought, let's escape. And that I think will resonate with a lot of people, that wanting to escape, wanting to pretend that it wasn't happening. And then when I did get into the flow of the day, it was like, wow, I am just grateful to be their mummy. And the year before was when I'd had the nice breakfast in bed and all that kind of thing, which I absolutely loved. But when I asked on my Instagram page about Mother's Day, so many of the responses were similar in that feeling of, if you are a mother yourself, enjoying being a mother and enjoying having your children and focusing on yourself and feeling that contentment, I guess it is contentment around being their mum, but also twinged with an element of sadness that you don't get to send a text message or pop in for a cuppa or just have that cuddle. And it brings up all of those feelings of why, but also all of those feelings of missing that thing that maybe you never really had, and you're missing a want or an ideal that you had in your mind, not the actual mother that you had. You miss what you needed her to be. You miss that opportunity to ring up and say, hey mom, I achieved this, I did this, and have them be excited with you instead of put you down. You miss that being able to ring them when you've had a really bad day and just hear, do you know what, sweetheart, it's going to be all right. And feel like you've got someone in your corner when you turn to. And I saw an interesting thing a few weeks ago about, do mums need their mums? And there was these younger people that were sort of saying, well, no, of course mums don't need their mums. They are the mum. And it was like, actually, very much so. Sometimes you just wish you had your mum. But for those of us that have had a really toxic relationship with mum, it's you wish you had a mum. Not your mum, a mum. I wish I had a mum that I could buy Mother's Day presents for, and that I could shower with affection and really ring her and be so excited to spend the day with her, go to Sunday lunch. I remember doing that one year with my mum. I took her out to Sunday lunch, and I think we took my husband's mum at the same time. A frigging awful experience. She did not like my husband's mum at all because she saw her as a threat to her status, if you like, within my life, as a threat to her standing as the matriarch of my family and of me, when in reality I was just really excited to have another person that cared about us. And that wasn't the way that my mum could ever view it, and very much made it difficult for me to have a positive relationship with my mother-in-law. In fact, I would say for the first decade of my relationship with my husband, it wasn't that positive because I pushed her away, and I felt like I was being the good daughter in doing that. So all of these feelings do bubble up around Mother's Day, and I think that's a really common thing. Yes, there is the focus on being delighted that I am so lucky to be a mum to such wonderful children, whilst also there's a tinge of sadness that I don't have that relationship that we're seeing smattered all over social media at the minute, with everybody being like, oh my god, my mum's my best friend, and you're like, well, that's unhealthy at the best of times. And it's difficult not to feel cynical. It is unhealthy at the best of times to be best friends with your parents, but we'll let that one slide. Now, As mentioned, I reached out on my Unfollowing Mum Instagram page and asked people, what do you feel about Mother's Day? How do you feel about it? What comes up for you around this time? And I'm going to read you some of the comments that I got in response, because I think they are so relatable. And if you're sat out there and you have perhaps a low contact relationship with your mum, I think in particular you'll find this relatable, because I am now estranged and have no contact whatsoever. I will not be sending a Mother's Day card. I wouldn't expect anything from her. I won't break contact for that, because I'm no contact for a reason, and I have no intention of getting in touch with her. And if that is you, I want you to know that that doesn't make you selfish, that this day, this commercialised day to celebrate mothers, doesn't mean that you have to get in touch with your abusive parent just because someone in an office decided that it was a good way to make more money on flowers. Like, that is not, it does not negate any of the ways in which she's treated you, and you do not owe her contact, flowers, cards, anything on Mother's Day if you do not feel that that is the right choice for you. And that goes whether or not you are in contact or not. And I appreciate that if you are, sometimes it's worth just sending a card, not to have to deal with the aggro. And if you are low contact, just the card feels like the minimal thing. Job done, ticked a box, and we're okay to move forward. I'm not going to get any shit from family or my dad or another mum or whoever. It feels like the simplest path, and if that's your choice, that's absolutely fine. No one here is going to judge that. Everybody navigates these situations in a different way. But if you are no contact and you are thinking, God, I'm awful for not contacting them on Mother's Day, it's the one day I really should. Mother's Day and her birthday, I have to reach out. No, you don't. No, you don't. If you do not want to, you are entitled to protect your peace, including on these holidays. So let me read some of these comments out to you. Someone replied, I hate it. I hate the expectation that my mum should be my best friend. And that one really resonated with me, because it's so frustrating when you see all over social media, oh, my best friend. And that narrative in and of itself is really damaging and toxic. We should never be our parents' best friend. And I've spoken about this before, and why that is emotional parentification, and how, yes, those dynamics change as we get older, but that even when we become adults, it's still recognised as relatively unhealthy to be the emotional crutch, the emotional support, and be the friend in a parent-child dynamic, even as an adult child. And yes, again, it does change as we become adults. There is room for manoeuvre there. Parents can lean much more on adult children than they can on younger children. But it's still supposed to have those boundaries. Not many people want to know intimate details of their parents' sex lives or their parents' insecurities, financial worries, all of these kind of things. Even as adults, those are burdens that are not necessarily supposed to be placed on our shoulders, but on the shoulders of a spouse, a therapist, or an actual friend. There is always that power imbalance, and it diminishes significantly when we become adults ourselves. But there is still that boundary in that relationship, and this narrative that mum is somehow your bestie. And I remember somebody saying to me once, their therapist had told them, your child can think of you as their best friend, but you should never think of them as your best friend. And I thought that was really interesting. I'd still challenge that, because as someone who very much thought my mum was my best friend, I was often isolated from everybody else. And now I reflect on relationships that I had with friends. I was very much encouraged into toxic behaviour, into treating them poorly, so that would destroy those relationships. I remember my best friend at school, she got another friend and we became a bit of a trio. And I was so consumed by jealousy that rather than taking me to a side and being like, hey, that's, this isn't, she's not replacing you. Your friendship group's just expanding. This is normal. This is healthy. What's going on? Let's talk about these insecurities. My mum would very much ramp it up to the point where that friendship ended up breaking off completely. And I think that was the right thing, because I wasn't being a good friend in that moment. I don't think they were being the best of friends either, but we were all teenagers. And my actions were having consequences. Again, that happened later on. My mum would make snide comments to friends that would come over because she felt they hadn't treated me as they should have done, or felt that she needed to have a say in the relationship. And somebody actually messaged me, slightly on a tangent here, asking if I would talk about how toxic parents insert themselves into friendships. I think that's an episode that I am going to do, because do I have some stories about how toxic parents, mine in particular, insert themselves into your friendships and ultimately kind of poison those friendships from the inside out. I think that is so common and something that I have come across so many times, but is very rarely spoken about, and the way in which they encourage you to mirror their behaviour and to be toxic yourself. So yeah, that narrative of the expectation that your mum should be the best friend, I really related to that. Someone else had commented, now I'm a mother, I'd much rather spend it with my family than the charade with my mum. And that's often what it feels like. It feels like it's some kind of made-up pantomime when you're with a toxic parent who treats you really badly, who you don't get along with, who you perhaps have low contact with, and you have to make an effort on Mother's Day. And you're thinking, why? You've never been the mother that I needed, or that as a child I deserved, and that you should have been. You've been a pretty crappy mum, and yet here I am buying you flowers and giving you cards that say how amazing you are. Someone else had said, to be honest, it's not something that bothers me. Maybe that's because I am a mother. And I do think there is that element of being able to step away from your relationship with your mum when you are a mum yourself, and being able to kind of reframe that day away from it being about your mum. I remember when my parents had not long separated. In fact, that's a lie, actually. I think they must have been separated about 3 or 4 years, maybe a bit more. And I wanted to buy my mum something for Mother's Day. And my dad took me into Toys R Us, and we bought a Winnie the Pooh teddy bear, because that's all that he would buy. He wouldn't buy anything big, and he wouldn't take me anywhere other than Toys R Us, because he wasn't going shopping for my mum. It was for me, and I could pick something in there if I wanted, which was real mature and really helpful. You know, like, would it have been much of an effort to cross the road, nip into Tesco and get the woman a candle? Like, probably not, but that was the level of douche-canoery we were dealing with. It was petty, it was emotionally immature, it was weaponizing me, because then that was fed back to me from my mum of, oh, well, I really like it, but your dad only let you get this for me because. I think it was, again, I think that was Mother's Day. It could well have been her birthday. They kind of mesh together with all of the same sort of negative experiences. Someone else had put, long before I went no contact, I used to cringe at it. You're my best friend and world's best mum just never applied. And this is the problem with these kind of things. They don't apply. Someone else had said, I'm really anxious. I've not spoken to her since I told her I wasn't available when she ignored me and my kids. And that's the other thing. If you have had a current breakdown in a relationship, but you've not quite communicated that you are no contact, or that you are going to be limiting contact and you've not expressed those boundaries outwardly, or you have and it's resulted in a blow up, but you have the type of narcissistic parent who will usually have this massive blow up, silent treatment for a few weeks or months, and then all of a sudden they want to be best friends again as if nothing had ever happened, and you'll get a random hiya, how are you, not spoken in a while message out of the blue, as if it's perfectly normal that you've not spoken for that time and that your last communication was toxic as hell. Then this day is an ideal opportunity for them to kind of slide back in under the radar, which someone else noted by saying it's another day to be mindful of hoovering and guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is when you're making someone feel guilty for the behaviour that they have, the boundaries that they've set in, the behaviour where they've chosen themselves, but you're making them feel guilty for doing something that they shouldn't feel guilty for, and you're actively taking them on a trip of guilt. And then hoovering. Hoovering is a classic manipulation tactic that usually is used to kind of suck people back in, that getting back in touch that we talked about. It might involve love bombing, it might involve faking a crisis, I'm sure that is one that many people will relate to, of all of a sudden something has happened and it just so happens to be around this time, just randomly, oh, they've fallen down the stairs or they're really ill, and you get there and actually they've got snuffles or something, they've bumped themselves and it wasn't actually a crisis, but it's managed to suck you back in. Smear campaigns are another method of hoovering, although that's a slightly different kind of version. It's a way to get you to get in contact with them and say, you've been saying this and that isn't true. Although I would class smear campaigns slightly differently. I think they can be a method of hoovering when it's done with a deliberate way of trying to get you to get in touch. It's all about reeling you back in. And another common one is stalking and following you around or suddenly turning up at the house and that sort of thing. So being mindful of hoovering and guilt tripping around this day is such a difficult thing to have to navigate, but absolutely bang on the money of the way that this can pan out. Someone else had put, there's avoidance there, a bit of guilt and anger for ruining Mother's Day for me. I think that's another interesting thing. We often feel that our ability to enjoy the day with our own children has kind of been dampened by this negative experience that we have with our parent. And that's so unfair. It's a day where lots of other people seem to be really happy, enjoying themselves, living their best lives, and we're there feeling somewhat sad. Even if we are enjoying ourselves, there's a tinge of sadness there, there's a bit of guilt there, and it's so frustrating. And that anger that you now have a negative connotation around a day that everyone else sees as really fun and really happy sucks, and it's valid, and that's, you're allowed to feel frustrated at that, and you're allowed to feel angry at the parent that's created that. Someone else had said, I'm angry that I don't have a proper mother to celebrate. And I thought that was a really poignant way of phrasing it. I'm angry that I don't have a proper mother. I would love to join in with the celebrations. I would love to be able to lavish my mum in all of these different ways and to celebrate our relationship. And I can't because of her behaviour. And that's not fair. Someone else had said, I'm glad I don't have to pretend I'm grateful for everything, brackets, absolutely nothing anymore. I think that is really bang on the money as well. Gratitude that you don't have to pretend. There's so many of these comments that talk about pretending and how they don't have to, words that kept cropping up where I don't have to pretend, I don't have to keep up with the charade, I don't have to join in with this. Someone had used the word pantomime, and I thought that was really telling of how they felt about this experience, that it was almost a farcical day where they were expected to pretend that this parent was this wonderful figure when actually they'd been downright awful all of their lives. Going back to what I said earlier about people who are kind of in that low contact phase, somebody had put, I'm really nervous, I'm not sure how boundaried I should be and whether I should even acknowledge her on the day. Someone else had said that this was their first experience of being estranged from their mother and they'd only just been estranged a month. Someone else had put, I feel that I have to go and see her when the last thing that I want to do is be in her presence. And this is what I'm saying about, you don't have to break no contact on this day. You don't have to go and see someone. It is a boundary to say, I'm not going to come today. I'm just going to spend the day enjoying myself. Interestingly, someone had written, I don't want to celebrate her. What is the bare minimum I can get away with? The bare minimum that you can get away with is what you choose. You can say, I am not going to contact her on this day. I am not going to send a card. I am not going to send flowers. I'm not going to do anything, if that's what you choose. And yes, that choice is not going to be free from consequence. It may well mean that you end up with a smear campaign, that you end up with, why have you not come to see me? And other people, flying monkeys, contacting you and saying, you've really upset mum because you've done this. And you have to be prepared for that and prepared to stand your ground and say, I didn't want to. I didn't want to pretend that she's been this wonderful mum when actually she's been a nightmare and I don't want to have to spend time with her, and that's okay. And yes, there is the side of that. Someone had put, it feels like an expectation. If we don't go, we're forever judged and reminded of it. That is that consequence that I'm talking about, of having to then reaffirm your boundaries and reset them and say, well, no, I didn't contact you because we do have a bad relationship, and I didn't want to contact you. I wanted to just forget about the day. I want you to be accountable for the things that have happened and change the way you behave towards me. And if you don't feel that you're able to do those things in sending a small card or some flowers or whatever it is that you choose, that's enough. It doesn't have to be a big show that is then thrown back at you. And someone had put, I'm conflicted, I've been considering no contact, but is it a dick move to do it just before Mother's Day, or do I wait? Again, that's centering the parent and thinking about them, their needs. If you are considering being no contact and you want to be no contact, then that is your choice. And it doesn't make you a dick if that happens just before Mother's Day. It doesn't make you a dick if that happens after Mother's Day. It means that you're choosing to protect yourself and your peace. And that's absolutely okay. But it wasn't all negative either. People had put, I celebrate being the mum that I never had now to my own kids. Other people had put conflicted, and some had said, it's a day for me and my son. Others had said mixed. I love that I get to be a mum, but I'm sad that I can't have the mum that I need. And it wasn't all negative by any means. For some people, it was an opportunity to say, hey, I'm breaking this cycle and I'm making a difference, and for that I'm going to celebrate myself today. I'm proud. But interestingly, the majority of comments that came through from people used the word dread, awkward, guilt came up all the time, hate it came up all the time. There were so many words that were repeated, and most of them did have that negative connotation. Someone had said, also my mum's birthday for me, worst timing. I'm right at the start of my no contact decision, so it's giving me massive anxiety when I don't send something. I know she's going to flip. And it's dealing with that fallout and dealing with the aftermath if you do choose to maintain no contact. And what you have to remind yourself is that there is nothing wrong with choosing yourself, and that's okay. On a final note, someone had said, it's a weird one. My estranged biological mum died a few years back, and this is going to be my second one as a mum. And I think after a death of a parent, even a toxic parent, there is almost that change in perspective. I'm not sure how to word it, to be honest, for somebody who's usually so verbose. I'm not quite sure what words I would use to describe it. There is a difference in the feeling. In some ways, I think for a lot of people, it's almost a relief that it's not going to come back on you and make you look like you're a bad guy if you don't get in touch with them or send them messages or try and appease them in some way. And you're not going to have to deal with any hoovering. You're not going to have to deal with any guilt tripping or any of these things. But in another way, there's a finality to it that changes things. And I think that's a massive, massive difference. And whatever you feel surrounding that, be it relief, be it a sense of peace that they're gone and that you don't have to be fearful that they'll get in contact, or be it sadness that they're gone. Those feelings are all valid as well. And no one can tell you how you should or shouldn't feel. And that summarises Mother's Day for me quite neatly, that nobody can tell you how you should or shouldn't feel, and that you are free to feel however you want to feel, and that's okay. Okay guys, thank you for listening. I will speak to you again next week. Be gentle with yourself this weekend if it is your mother that you have a difficult relationship with. And remember to take some time for you. And what I would suggest to you is that whilst you are on this journey of healing from toxic parents, you are in some ways your own parent now. And that's why we use the term reparenting when we talk about that inner child work. And you are allowed to celebrate you. So if it feels right to you to do so, buy yourself a cake, buy yourself a chocolate bar, whatever it might be, and celebrate you this Mother's Day. Because you are the one that is doing the work and you deserve it. Speak to you soon. Bye.